thing you said that kind of caught my attention was just this idea that they're going to have to pay attention to inflation and expectations, and maybe the Fed is behind on that. You were with us last week to talk about that CEO survey that you conducted that showed inflation expectations are starting to really ratchet up when it comes to CEOs. That, in turn, can be a self-fulfilling prophecy if they start raising prices to keep up with what they expect to be higher input costs. It's hard to stop the train at that point. Does that mean you think that there's the chance that even though the center of the Fed is not at 50 basis points, that may be where they need to be based on what you're hearing from CEOs and others?
I think you point to one of the messages I would take away from that CEO survey, which is their expectation that both wages and other input costs are going to continue. Importantly, they said that they expect to pass that through in 6 months to 12 months, which says to me that the individuals, the companies, the counterparties on the other side know that price increases are coming. And so I think that is a measure that shows perhaps a rising inflation expectations. Obviously, part of the question then becomes consumers and what they see. And so this message around inflation expectations, I would encourage everyone to listen closely to what is being said in the marketplace broadly, both what the TIPS markets and others are saying about inflation expectations, but also what individual decision makers such as CEOs and consumers are starting to say in that regard. That was one of the things that was very important back in the 70s and early 80s. I don't think we're at that stage right now, but let's really pay attention to this question whether or not the inflation expectations are starting to creep out of the bottle a little bit.
If that's the case, do you think a 50 basis point move would be helpful to try and tamp down concerns?
I think it's got to be. If they go in that direction, it must be presented very well so it doesn't feel as though the Fed is in a panicky mode, right? They have certainly, I would not expect them to do an intermediate move, for example. And if they do decide to go to 50, they have to be very, very clear as to what that means about the path going forward. Because I think the challenge of tooling something that's not quite expected yet, it's a sort of 50-50 possibility, is a surprise that maybe things are worse than we see. So I would encourage friends, former colleagues of the Fed, if they think 50 is necessary, to make sure they explain exactly why that's the case. And importantly, does that change their outlook for the pace at which they are likely to be moving? And the commentary from President Bullard shows exactly how sensitive markets are to these things that are nuances to some degree, 50 versus 25 basis points. Is also really pretty important in the marketplace.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.